Record, and I'm unmuting microphones, and looks like Woody's out there, but I don't know if I'll ever manage to hear him because he's on the phone. So, hello, Gargi and Melina. Can you talk?
Hi.
Hey.
Hi.
All right. So, let's see here. Um, Okay, so I am going to reward promptness by going ahead and starting, even though people are going to be late, probably.
Good.
So let's go ahead and, Chris, let me ask you again about your experience on looking for green this week.
Well, I did do it. What I did was I put it in my phone on my calendar
Fabulous.
to repeat every day. So every day that I look at my calendar, it says look for green. That's the first thing I see.
Oh.
And also, then of course along the day I check my calendar all day just to make sure I'm not missing something. So I keep seeing that. So it's a really good way to do it.
Wow.
And so I looked and saw green, and I mean I got to be honest that it doesn't really do much for me.
Okay, well, so take it off your thing then. don't just. But thank you for finding
It doesn't bother me, but it's sort of I mean, maybe I'm not. I don't know. I mean, I understand that it's maybe I should give it more of a chance, like as far as like focusing more than whenever I see it, just notice around me, but maybe.
Well,
try to notice it, like say I'm walking, going for like a hour walk, like really just have that be a focus. Could make it a different experience.
Well, of course it could, and you're absolutely right about that. The trick is to really get yourself kind of looking and sort of comparing different shades of green. It can draw you more in, and there may be other things that are more important for you to be attending to right now.
Yeah.
Emily, are you able to speak? I see you're supposed to be here.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah. So now, I don't know. Did you manage to see any yellow this week?
Yeah, it was hard to do it consistently, but there were a couple times where I stopped and looked around and found more than I expected to.
Okay. Okay, so a little bit. So thank you for managing to get the homework done. How did you manage to get it done? Now, Chris was saying he put it in on his calendar. Now that kept popping up. How did you get yourself to do the homework?
I'm not really sure. It just kind of popped into my head a couple times when I was in really crowded locations.
Okay. Now, did you notice any effect in terms of how it shifted your experience of being alive?
It did have the effect of slowing me down a bit.
Okay.
And I don't know. I feel like it kind of shifted my vision or something. Like those colors became more bright.
Aha. Okay. All right. Very interesting. Very interesting. Well,
and I had a thought. I was wondering, do you always let people pick their color, or do you ever assign a color based on maybe the chakras or something, red for grounding, or
you really could. You could absolutely adapt this in whatever ways work for you. I don't do that very much, although sometimes if people there's so much green that you can kind of get blasé about it. But if you look for purple, that's harder to find. Probably a fair amount. There's quite a bit of yellow, is my experience when I look for yellow. So sometimes I'll pick something that is sort of a counterpoint to make it little less easy and mundane. You can
Then it might,
adapt this in any way you like. Yeah, go ahead, jump in there.
well, then it might promote anxiety for me. Oh, I can't find purple.
Oh God, I'm failing.
Fuck.
Sure.
There's no purple here. There's no purple in my world.
Oh, yeah. Well, mindfulness can show up all kinds of things, and nice mindfulness of the kinds of things that may show up in your experience. I see competitive stuff show up for me all the time. Approval sucking behavior. Lots of stuff.
You get mindful of your anxiety. There you go.
Well, exactly. Yeah, and what tends to stimulate it, and then what to do about it. What can bring it down to a more manageable film while paying attention. Anxiety is a useful emotion. It can get you doing stuff.
Yeah, totally.
Running away from predators and stuff. Okay, well, very good. Thank you so much. Let's see, and I think Sarah's not going to be able to be here, so I can't ask her about the red she found. But let's see, here comes Kat. Well, I said I was going to not talk about the unmuting thing so much. All right. Well, so thank you all of you for showing up. Here we are in the last webinar. But it's not necessarily our last chance to have some contact with one another. I want to mention, so the poll.
Excuse me, Michael.
Yeah, there's a
Could
lot.
you mute?
I'm going to mute every microphone because that was really getting to be a very annoying feedback. I hope that's what you were about to say, Chris. If you were about to call for help because there was a burglar, I just probably did the wrong thing here. I better backtrack and find out. Chris, were you talking?
No, I'm fine. No burglar here.
Okay.
That's what I was gonna ask about that. Yeah. So thank you.
All right. Okay. So now I've forgotten what. Okay. So last webinar, but in response to the polls about when people could come, I've decided to do a bimodal distribution of our meeting time. Some people could come at noon, couldn't be there later. So, and other people couldn't be there earlier, but could be there later. So I'm going to go with splitting up my time, and then if you are able to kind of drop in and say hi, we'll just talk about whatever comes up. And if there's enough people, maybe we'll do the take your mind for a walk thing or some other experiential exercise. So I'm going to be available. Oh shoot, I did not. Oh, I didn't. I made a note, but I did not check the room number. All right, so you know what? I'm going to send out the room number on an email where I'm going to be. I'm going to be there from 12 p.m. to 1 or a little bit thereafter if we kind of get into something. And I'm going to be there from 3:30 to 4:30 or a bit after if we get into something interesting. So we've got a room, and I will get that out to you on email. And so this is not the very last time. And then there were a bunch of you that are completely gone that day or just couldn't make it. If this additional time at noon opens up something for someone, that would be lovely. And we'll meet if we can, and if not, another time. As I said before, I am really happy to talk with you all some on the phone. My number is 415-793-3604, and I would happily do some talking with you about questions that come up or whatever. It's been really gratifying to be reading the exams this morning and over the last day or two. Many of you have really kind of got into this, and it's very sweet to see that. And other folks were less involved, and then some of you I'll be sort of tracking down and hounding you to get your work in sufficiently to pass the course. But that that's I've come to understand that by now as a teacher. The oneness, bottom line, the oneness is just moving as it moves wherever it's moving, and some people really kind of get excited about this stuff, and for other people there are other things that are more exciting. Their attention is drawn in other directions, and so I just don't have any problem at all with that. It's moving the way it moves, but it was really quite reinforcing of my efforts to teach this, to see that some of you really quite got into it. And actually, let me go from there um, to just mention, and this is honestly pretty random, so please don't take this if I don't end up talking about your exam, please don't feel insulted or left out. But there were a couple of them that really perhaps happened to strike me and as being very powerful. And so I actually got I've got Erica's and Sarah's and Emily's exam up here because as they were sort of talking about things that meant something to them, there were some kind of neat things. So here's Erica. I loved the intervention she came up with. She kind of riffed on the choose your own adventure thing on my website and came up with a thing about choose your own adventure when discussing possible outcomes with a client. For the example, the results of self-harm. This intervention can be useful so that the client and the therapist can discuss the consequences to each possible path. I thought that was extremely lovely. Um, and let's see here. And then I also thought it was kind of cool. Um, that didn't work. I was going to make it bigger. And then I liked somehow you just out of one little snippet of something I said, you picked up on the taking your mind for a walk thing. And I do actually do this sometimes with clients. So the idea there is that one person, as you said, one person orders and the other disobeys the commands. So one person kind of acts as the person's mind and suggests all of this stuff, and you can be as dramatic and catastrophic as you like. I like playing that part. And then the person is actually free to do what the mind says, but they're also free to disobey in the same way as if I say something like, I couldn't possibly continue talking here. And there's no way that I could continue to keep talking. So there's a contradiction between the content of what my mind's saying and I'm speaking aloud and what I'm actually doing. So one person orders and the other disobeys the commands, working with the paradox of doing the opposite action to what the thought is trying to provide. So that was very cool. Somebody, let's see, it was Sarah. Speaking of opposite action, I really liked what Sarah wrote in listing opposite action as one of her interventions she learned about. She wrote about it in this really incredibly dialectical way that I really love. So I'm going to read her thing. She said, I really like the principles of opposite action and how it is held as a dialectic intervention where you begin with mindfulness of a negative thinking process, but you act in the opposite direction without losing sight of your original awareness. It's very inclusive, not cutting anything out, but still empowering and demonstrating the person doing it to have options in their behavior other than habituated negative ones. So I love the dialectical Zen quality. I mean, Sarah teaches Zen apparently. Very cool. Um, and I rarely think of it as that way. I mean, I think of opposite action as being kind of a change strategy, and it will work. Remember the idea is that if you're feeling kind of sad and like depressed and not wanting to do anything, if you kind of force yourself to do something, you usually your mood picks up a little bit. And similarly, as opposite action for fear, getting yourself to do something you're afraid of over and over and over again brings down the fear. And so forth. With anger, anger urges us to go towards and attack somebody verbally or physically. And if you go the other way and kind of take a time out, the famous time out for anger management, and even farther, you you do something kind of nice for the person, like consider their point of view. Think about why they might be there might be validity to their point of view. that'll also bring down your anger. So I thought that was a really very sweet. Um, and then Emily, let's see, what was it in Emily's thing? Yeah, she did a what she called a desk wall meditation. Um, let's see here. Let me try one more time to get this to get bigger. My computer skills. No, it really did not work. Stick with it long. Tack with it. I'm just going to read it. So the desk wall meditation says the client sits facing a desk and/or wall. They begin by looking at the wall and consciously naming it as separate from themselves. Next, they do this with each object on the desk, taking it and naming it as separate from themselves. Once they have done this for all the objects in their view, they can begin to turn their awareness inward and do the same process for their thoughts. See them, name them, and identify themselves as separate from their thoughts. So I thought that was really very creative. I did kind of model something like that, I think, in the meditation from the summer webinar. I think that's presumably. I can ask Emily actually where she ran across that in the course. But in fact, let me do that. Hello, Emily.
Yeah.
Hi. Where
Can you hear me?
Yes. Thank you, and presumably everybody else can too. So, where in the course did you kind of derive the association about the desk wall meditation?
It was in one of the recent readings. It was the one that had metaphors about the Chinese finger trap and the hungry
fabulous.
tiger.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah, that was a Steve Hayes get out of your mind into your life thing. Okay, well, great. Thank you, because I'd kind of forgotten that was in there. Very, very cool. Yeah, nice. Really nice. I do a version of that where I kind of start over at the opposite side of the room, kind of walk them closer and closer, and then I have them notice their foot and kind of move up the body. And I'm sort of making a distinction between what's aware of the body and the body. And then I go from there and to the extent that we can notice thoughts and emotions, therefore what's aware of them is something other than that and actually larger and more inclusive as we experience ourselves. I mean, we can loop around. I mean, there's a way in which we are not separate from what we see and what we experience. It's that sort of Zen paradox stuff that, first there's a mountain, then there's no mountain, because you're separating, you're stepping back into what's just aware of the mountain. But then finally there is a mountain again as you recognize that there's a complete oneness between what's aware and what it's noticing. And certainly we experience ourselves as kind of being inclusive of our thoughts and our body. It's just not what we most intimately are as awareness. So thank you very much. That's cool. I love it. It's so exciting when people pick up on some new part of something. And there was a whole lot of that in many of your exams. You were picking up on interesting things about the diversity issue. Some of you sort of cued in on the ones that I'd mentioned. But others of you had your sort of own unique take about how challenging thoughts and stepping back into awareness and all of that absolutely supports an appreciation of and a tolerance for people being different. So let's see here. We're 20 minutes into this. So I really want to thank you all for all of that. I'm going to unmute microphones here. And as we find out who's got the really noisy environment, you may want to try to. Well, actually, I think it started to happen as I got Eric. Is that so? Wow. So it looks like
Michael.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to say something about my exam that you haven't read yet.
Yes. So thank you.
I just had this realization recently because I had some communication with spirit that told me to love myself as a intervention.
Oh.
And of course, to me, that sounds so stupid and obvious. You know, it's like pop psychology or new age. You know, I'm a total new ager, but you know, I still judge it. Thinking, oh, love yourself, like great. And then when I decided to take it seriously, I thought, well, great, but how the fuck am I supposed to do that? That's a beautiful thing to say, but how the fuck do you do it?
Yeah.
You know, like it's like, and then I don't know how it came to me, but it came to me that self-love it actually isn't this kind of amorphous, like feeling emotional thing necessarily, but it's an action-oriented thing.
Yes,
it's actually like if I actually do something that indicates that I love myself.
Ooh.
Like for instance, I decided I could clean my room. And that was really a way of loving myself. I mean, and I could feel that, you know.
Yeah.
And then, and how about looking at my finances instead of like avoiding seeing if I have any money in the bank? That's a good way of loving myself too. So I did that, and I felt so much better. And so I was so to me that was a way, in a way that's kind of like the opposite action thing.
Yes.
You know, because I'm thinking all these things that are bothering me, and I think, well, if I can apply the loving myself, and so it gives me a context to do those things that I think I should be doing.
Yes.
And it also gives me, what's that called? Interjects or whatever, you know, those psychological words for the parental function. It puts the parental function back in me.
In a positive context, as love.
In a really, yeah, a very good, like, you know, it's like, oh, I wish, you know, I could just go home and my, you know, my mother would just take care of me and they would support me or something like that. Of course, they're dead and I'm 60, but other than that, it's a nice thought. But so here, I guess maybe this is what's needed. Maybe I have to, you know, take in the parental function myself. So anyway,
so wonderful. Yes. So you're doing loving as a behavior, and you found
loving as an action, as a behavior.
Yeah. Oh, that is so cool. Thank you.
And I think that, you know, and the way I am, I think, oh my God, I got the answer. I'm so smart. It's so great.
Yay.
But I was talking to this an elder of mine, a shaman guy. And he said, that's really great, Chris, and it's just the beginning.
Yes, we're always beginning. Always.
It's just the beginning of loving yourself. So it's not the be-all and end-all, but it's a good start.
No, it's a wonderful start, and you're absolutely right. There is no end to the depth of loving oneself. I mean, where my mind goes with that, for whatever it's worth, I'm interested in helping people step back into awareness. And my experience is that awareness itself has loving kindness as one of its qualities. So there's so many different levels. You know, you absolutely can do this as a behavior. You can step back into what it is that loves everything. And then as you step far enough back into that, you're stepping into the oneness of which life is in love with itself. The oneness is meeting itself and loving itself in all the forms. But you know, it's a delightful dance to have it be functioning at all these different levels, and behaviors that you're talking about, our interactions with other people, and this incredible depth of an impossible, incomprehensible level of loving kindness. Bless you.
Bless you.
Excuse me.
What we really are.
I forgot I was on mic.
That was such a sincere sneeze, though, you know. That was participating in the oneness of life. So, Chris, thank you for jumping in, and actually, I want to invite others of you to kind of jump in with. Well, you know, here we are. We're in the. I've actually got some set pieces that are going to take a chunk of time here, and so I got about 5 minutes, I think, before I've got to start going into that. But this is at least our last webinar moment to kind of be talking with each other, Um, what else is coming up? Let me just cue it one more possible way. Any questions or reactions to the fourth wave paper, or possibly the Hayes video? Um, let's see, where'd the rest of that? Oh, I lost my other thing. Um, those are really at this point kind of optional, but I'm curious as to anybody may have watched them or read it or stuff like that. So the floor is open. Well, silence can be good. So, okay, I will fill the silence myself then. So some of you have made it over to the this paper on the fourth wave of behaviorism. Just want to mention that again. In a way, I'm just kind of throwing up lots of possible stuff. Again, recognizing that some of you, I mean, there's a distribution, there's a bell curve of folks who get excited about this stuff, and then at the other end, people are showing up, getting their class credit. I'm good with all of that, but I'm trying to have a nourishing bunch of stuff up there for those of you who may want to look further. Duncan had reinforced my remark about throwing up a paper about suicide. So this is still in draft form. You can really see it perhaps on your screen. This is just the latest draft, but there's enough up there to want to post. And so it is up on the main page. It's just below the exam.
Oh, good.
And you can find it there. And it's called Who Wants to Die? What's Always Here? Let me see if it actually seems. Yeah, so it does seem to be downloading. Yep, that's working. So it's right over here below the take-home exam, and so there's several things that I think it's possible to talk about in a unique and interesting way from from a fourth, what I'm calling a fourth wave perspective, where we're kind of interested in awakening to true nature and looking at living life from life itself, from what's aware within us, letting that kind of happen all by itself. That's the operating system that has been called enlightenment or awakening. There's so many non-dual wisdom teachers making the challenge now that if you really want to, enlightenment doesn't have to be something for some future lifetime, and you can really do it this time if you want. And from a certain point of view, it's not as hard as some people think. Anything that somebody can manage to do is not as hard as people have thought. And again, so just noticing the role of thoughts in the thoughts that people have about what it means to become enlightened. Of course, that so easily gets in the way. But the idea that people have that it's impossible for them is absolutely an obstruction. That said, the dialectical pole of that is that you have to actually kind of be willing to work to make it a priority, which goes back to the values issues that we've sort of been talking about. But so apart from the idea that there are the processes of that support diffusion and stepping back into what's aware, that ultimately takes us into the direction of living from there, which is sort of what constitutes enlightenment. In addition to that, and being able to offer a sort of a non-theological, non-religious description of that, there are some things that are suggested from this way of looking at things that I'm trying to speak to, and so this may well eventually become a book, God willing, because it turns out as I'm working with this, I've got a lot to say about this. But the idea that of who wants to die, what's always here, I'm suggesting, and actually, there was someone in the summer webinar who asked a question that got me talking about this, and then that led, like in a butterfly effect, to get me back working on this paper, which I've been promising for years. The idea that, like everything else in life, suicidal ideation and wanting to die may actually be an important thing. And I'm suggesting that, well, what I'm calling the novel ideas, that first is that allowing who or what really wants to die within us, and that's usually a collection of thoughts, one of the members of a parliament within us, allowing who or what really wants to die to do so without letting it kill the physical body may be essential to finding out what cannot die and is always here. And so I end up talking about the amount of mystical literature that talks about dying before you die, for example, from Muhammad and the Sufi tradition. All the different mystical paths talk about a sort of a letting go and a surrender. And in fact, the Gangaji video that I'm going to show you in a minute also speaks to the role of that, the willingness to kind of let go of fierce attachment and fusion with who it is we thought we have been, to let go of that into the largeness of what it is we actually have always been. But from the point of view of the mind, that and even the mind that's sort of trying so hard to attain enlightenment or whatever else it wants, getting that its very efforting is in the way, to be willing to surrender itself, is an essential part of the process. And so I'm trying to utilize the suicidal ideation, the part of folks that come into my office wanting to die, to show them a way that they can really have what they're actually after without killing their body. So that's the second idea, is that what it is that we are really after in the experience of death, at least as much death as it's possible to find in a universe where the one ever-present awareness permeates everything. What we're really after can be found within what is aware. So there's sort of an exploration of basically this has something to do with the non-locatability of a self. When we look for what's aware, we cannot find what's looking. So that's what the Buddhists call emptiness. The fact that we cannot find that, I mean, there really is a non-existence of that. And that is a certain kind of being completely dead. If you discover that there isn't anything within you that is actually what is trying to do everything in the way that you've become accustomed to thinking about that, there's really a significant shift, and it's a way to utilize suicidal ideation. So I spend a bunch of time talking about that, and eventually I'm also going to be talking about what else I know about how to work with suicidal clients. So there's some of that already in there. And this may really not be of interest to you, but if there's somebody that is interested in it, check it out. As one of my clients said to me about another paper, the transpersonal character disorder paper, she said, "Man, that's pretty out there." And I had to agree that was way different from her, how she was looking at the world. And so I absolutely can validate that all of this really comes in from quite a different point of view than most people are operating. But for the folks who resonate with it, this can be useful. The other application that I'm eventually going to try to get into some writing done about is and what we're calling bipolar disorder now. When people get into these really expansive manic episodes, my experience from a fourth wave CBT point of view is that there is actually some validity. There's something larger within us that gets activated under certain conditions, including schizophrenia and psychosis too. But that we can help people try to ground what it is they may have learned in manic episodes that can be useful in their own spiritual endeavors. So, you know what? I'm going to have to move on. If anybody is actually intrigued by that, write me or call me. We can talk about it further. So, I want to show you a couple of examples of what I call the similarity between um, psychotherapy kind of maneuvers and what teachers who are doing non-dual wisdom teaching, how it is that they go about interacting with people. And the fourth wave paper kind of sketches out about 13 similarities about that. So I'm going to show you a snippet of videotape from one of my teachers, Adyashanti. I think some of you have run across him. I'm going to mute the microphones, and I'm going to play this. This goes about 10 minutes, and then I'm going to show you a female teacher, a little bit of Gangaji, and then I'm going to try to get in my last act thing. So here we go.
Welcome.
Being afraid of being up here. I have a question about the meditator.
About the what?
The meditator.
The meditator. Yeah.
There have been a fair amount of glimpses over the course of practice, about 10 or 15 years.
Mm-hmm. Can you hold it a little closer?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Great.
And I kind of want to be out of this whole thing like that.
Yes.
And so there's a lot of energy behind that. And sometimes I feel like I get tripped over even on that.
What does it mean to be out of this whole thing?
I want to be free. I want to be out of what I perceive as suffering,
yes,
and limitation and separateness, and into something that I know intuitively is perfect, without going into too many other adjectives. I think that kind of sums it up.
So what about the meditator?
Well, a short while ago, I woke up, and before the thoughts started getting cranking, there was this perception of myself without an object. And my first impulse was, yes! You get up and meditate and nail this down. The nailing down.
The first thought.
Huh? Yeah, the first thought comes up.
Yeah.
And
that without location is going to sit down and meditate and try to hold on to that which has no location.
No location.
Yeah.
No choice.
Isn't thought funny?
Well, I didn't find it real funny when I was sitting in the chair.
No, I don't imagine you did.
And so it seems overly slippery to me.
It's very slippery.
To let go of that sense of an I who wants to, and I know that the intention is good.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But I don't know how to get past that I that has this intention.
You just see when you say I, what's this I? Really? If you can tell me what this I is, then I'll tell you how to get past it.
Well, if I take my time out and look at it, it's nothing more than a thought.
Okay.
And that's when I take the time, though.
Well, that's the key. Take the time.
Yeah, it almost seems like you just have to, if you have a spare few moments to wake up, just have one clear look and
spare 1 or 2 seconds. That's about it.
It could be pretty sudden, right? I mean, it
could be like really sudden. It could be like right now. Why not? It's what you already are anyway. It's not what you can become. Yeah. Whatever you can become will be destroyed in time. Whatever you can become, death will take it away.
Right.
Right? So it's not what you can become, it's what you are.
Without the next thought, without grabbing onto that next
without believing. But see, what you are doesn't believe the next thought.
Yeah, is it ever that awareness, or whatever one wants to call that, stillness, does that ever, I mean, I keep thinking, I used to think that you needed a ton of experiences to mount up and
Right.
to overcome this false sense of an I, but
right.
that doesn't work because I've had plenty of experience.
Well, the first thing is there's no need to try to get rid of the false sense of I. It's a wasted effort. Because number one, the only thing that's trying to get rid of the false sense of I is the false sense of I.
Yeah.
Right? The truth, that thought never occurs to the truth.
Right.
Right?
Yeah. That's totally choiceless.
Kind of a setup, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so there's a sense of I. Dare we call it the sense of a separate self? How about if we do that?
Okay.
Okay. Just to nail it down a little bit. To be very spiritually inappropriate. The sense of a separate self, right?
Okay.
So is there a sense of a separate self?
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else in here? Sense of a separate self? Okay. Whoever didn't raise their hand, you're lying. That was about 99% of you. Joking. So there's a sense of a separate self, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So do you have an idea that when you're totally free and totally enlightened, you're not going to have the sense of a separate self?
Seems like that should be the way it would be.
Shoulds don't count in the truth.
What's that again?
Shoulds don't count in the truth.
Oh,
Sense of a separate I isn't the problem. Never was the problem, never will be the problem. Got a sense of a separate I, big deal. That's not the problem.
What's the problem?
You believe it.
Oh, yeah, right. The grabbing onto that.
No. You just there's a sense of a separate self, right?
Uh-huh.
It's kind of a human thing. You get born, very quickly there's a sense of a self.
Mm-hmm.
It gets more separate feeling over time because you get a lot of thoughts to justify it, but there's a sense of a separate self, right?
Uh-huh.
Enough of a sense that when a baby, right? Those things that just stare off into the space with like the eyes of eternity, right? But when they get hungry, they know where to put the food, don't they? You know what? They're not like trying to stuff it in your ear or something, right? They're like, here. There's enough of a sense of a separate self, enough of a me to know where to put the food.
Uh-huh.
Sense of separate self, right there. There you got the beginnings of the sense of separate self. You don't have it, you're hungry and you're putting food all over the place. You don't know where to put it. I'm hungry, but there's no sense of, what's hungry. You think it's silly, but actually, that's why you got a sense of a self. That's why you got it. And if you ever meditate deeply enough, which you can, to temporarily obliterate it, better known as nirvikalpa samadhi, if you've ever seen somebody in that condition, it's a little pitiful. I've seen it. I've seen people literally sitting down for food at breakfast, and they pick it up, and they just don't know where in the hell to put the spoonful of food. And they sit there and just stare at it. And they literally can't figure it out. Because their sense of self in any form has been temporarily totally obliterated. They're totally dysfunctional at that point. It's a nice place to visit. It's not a nice place to stay forever because you can't function.
Yeah, I want to function.
Sense of a separate self isn't a problem.
Okay.
It's because there is a sense of a separate self. Your mind concludes, therefore, there is a separate self. And that separate self is called me. And even when you're totally enlightened in everything, you're still going to have a very rudimentary sense of self. When someone says your name, you're going to be able to turn around and you're going to know they're talking to you. You're going to have enough. The difference is that you realize that even though there is a sense of a separate self, that there isn't one.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense.
At all. Don't waste no more time trying to get rid of that sense in any way. It's just a waste of time and energy.
So it's the belief that's the problem.
It's the belief that causes the problem.
So how do you eradicate I mean, even
You don't eradicate a belief. Where are you going to go to dig up a belief? Right? It's like if you had a totally insane person came, and they're literally insane, they said, "Good Lord, I've got this problem." Yeah, what's your problem? I got this. I woke up this morning and my backyard was full of carrots. So you know they don't even have a backyard, right? They're insane. They're just imagining it. I have all these carrots. How do I pull them out? What are you going to say to them?
what carrots?
That's right. What carrots? You see?
Yeah, okay.
You can't answer that question, can you?
No.
Right, because this is an insane question.
I'm worse off than I thought.
Don't be concerned. It's just a human thing. It's a mind
Call
thing.
me off now. Okay.
Right?
Okay. So every time this thought comes up, that's fine. That's not the problem.
Is it fine? It's not fine with thought, right? Your mind would say that thought, that's not fine. It's taught to do that.
Yeah.
The spiritual
Yeah.
mind is particularly adept, particularly a condition. The spiritual mind says that mind is not okay. I must get rid of mind. That's a
Yeah.
spiritually conditioned mind, right?
Yeah. It's
And
every bit is binding.
It's every bit is binding, right? See, conditioning doesn't matter if it's spiritual, worldly, mundane. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Conditioning is conditioning.
Yeah.
So a spiritual mind that says there can't be thoughts, it's still just thought.
Yeah.
Have you noticed that awareness is never trying to get rid of your thoughts?
Yeah, that was, there have been a couple of glimpses of awareness being utterly choiceless.
Yes.
And that, with regard to thought,
Yes.
which meant with regard to everything.
Yes.
And
with regard to this one sitting right next to me,
Yeah.
choicelessly, this one is, in an instant, this one is okay.
Yeah.
Choicelessly.
Yeah. Yeah, it didn't care.
No.
Yeah. And it didn't care if the thoughts were there by the billions.
No.
Or if they were all gone.
Right. Doesn't matter.
Or which kind they were.
No. The only remaining thing then becomes when we start to talk about awareness as it, then we separate ourselves from it. Me and awareness. Is it actually so? Is it true that there's awareness and there's me? You see, again, what am I really? Is that awakeness, that awareness, that consciousness, whatever you call it, that which has no form, is that?
Okay, I'm going to have to jump in here because I'm kind of running up against the time barrier here. So that goes on in that goes on in a lovely way for another while, and it's I'm going to post a link to this. This is got a very apt title to it. This is called "What Do You Really Want?" And Adya talks for a while about the importance of getting some clarity on that in the spiritual path or in anything else. It's really quite act-like. So let me see here. Let me go back. I want to show you just a few minutes of a female teacher by the name of Gangaji. I sat with Gangaji for about 10 years before kind of moving on to Adyashanti. Again, I'm just going to play you kind of a snippet of this, and you can hear what this sounds like.
Good morning. Are you dropping in to the space? Surrendering your role as director, your occupation as director, certainly your preoccupation as director. Someone was speaking last night and mentioned, I think she said, I love truth. Or, oh God, I love truth. And that's it. Of course, we're in love when this revelation is here, when this deep insight is here. But the catch is, we're used to making objects of what we love, whether it's people or places or ideas or the experience of truth. We make it ours rather than making ourselves its. It's just the opposite of surrender. I remember Papaji talking in Lucknow to people about you have to surrender as if you're a new bride to the truth. He's speaking of lover-beloved relationship. But then he saw he was talking to Westerners, and he said, but I don't mean a modern kind of bride. Because it's essentially a submissive role. It's not an unintelligent role. It's not a role where there's not emotion, but you are submitting your life to truth, to something that you cannot own, but that already owns you. And this goes really counter to certainly our Western understanding, because in partnerships, it's very intelligent to speak your truth, to be co-directors of the relationship. It's in any number of human relationships. That's enlightened. And certainly it's evolved. But when it comes to something that is not human, I don't want to use the word God, but I understand what it means in this context. I'm always using the word truth, but if you're thinking truth means how I'm feeling, you have to throw that away. This is the mystery of what brings us together, what breathes us, what borns us, and what kills us. This hugeness that really we have no capacity to control. And I also know that this is a little bit of heresy for our New Age understanding of spirituality, where we are co-pilots with God, or we are co-directors. But this is something deeper, where you are slain. You're on the floor, so how can you direct anything? And you discover in that, the direction is quite clear. It doesn't mean a life of inactivity or a life of not speaking out or a life of giving up activism. It just means that you have submitted yourself to something that remains bigger, something that is still a mystery. So last night when you said, I don't know, or someone said, I don't know, I remember you said that about I love truth. That's the conscious, I don't know. And then there's knowledge that drops, like, oh, I know this. I know I should move. I know I should change this. I know I should not do this. But it's coming from I don't know. And in that recognition, there's the knowledge that whatever you do is subject to mistake. As you know, by this time, if you're past 15 or maybe 16. So we have these ideas, and they're based on our same egoic control. That we will direct this, we will form this, and that's still based on the form, on survival. And this is not about survival. It's not anti-survival, it's a celebration of survival, and it's really about a welcoming to the point of survival. When you can realize that you did not born yourself, and neither did your mother. It's something so big that it remains out of the realm of knowledge, even though we have exquisite witnessing and testimonies and scriptures and songs and art and experiences day to day exalted that reveal that and recognize that. The challenge for us with our big brains and our beautiful capacity for intelligence is to not take ownership. It's a surrender of power. And that's really anti what we know about survival. If we surrender power, we could die, or be miserable at least. And that's really true in any number of situations. That's completely true. But regarding the source of who you are, regarding the mystery that is life, it doesn't apply. But our habit is to apply it, is to make truth another relationship that we love, as long as it's good to us, as long as it gives us what we want. Or even if it beats us up, we love it. But it's still our object. And so in that objectification, there's a resistance to just being absorbed by it. It doesn't mean that then there's no truth. It means then there's no me separate from truth. There are the sensory experiences and identities of a life form, and even that's not separate from truth. This is no small challenge. And it's glorious that spiritual inquiry and teachings from all realms are available to us at this time. They're available more than they've ever been to ordinary people. But the catch is we make it ordinary. We make it one of our things. We pull it out, we polish it. If we lose it, we look for it. It's like a doll. We shake it. You bad young lady. I saw my daughter do that with a doll once. Wonder where she got that. And that's exactly it. We've learned this because most of our learning is really only about survival, and that's a great thing. It's true of all life form, and it's intelligent. If you hadn't survived, you couldn't be here actually entertaining the possibility.
Okay, you know what? Again, I'm out of time. I will post this so that you can go check it out. There's a little bit more of it, and there's a lot more of her stuff up on that website. So, one last exercise I want to do. This is an ACT exercise, and this is called A Letter from Your Future Self. So, hopefully you guys have got some paper around there somewhere. If you don't, take a minute and find something that, because in a minute, I'm going to kind of take you into a mindfulness thing, and then have you start writing. Let's kind of let it happen automatically almost. So here's the meditation part, the mindfulness part. So I want you to imagine if your life goes well and you attain the fruition of what you've been seeking, you become a therapist, you follow whatever spiritual path appeals to you, you find the love of your life, you do all of those things. I want you to imagine a future 10 years from now, in 2024. And I want you to kind of walk into that life and see what your life looks like in 2024 into this positive future. And kind of getting a sense of, how your practice is going, how your life is going, what it is that's happening in the year 2024. And letting yourself feel a bit into the wisdom and the maturity, at least 10 years more so than now, of how things look to you. And now I want you to write a letter to the self that you were in 2014. So just as you start to feel it, just start writing away, dear so-and-so of 2014, and then just see what wisdom, what advice you have for that 2014 person. So go ahead and start with that. If I'm going to run over a few minutes, 3-4 minutes here. If you're a person that's really got to leave and go do something else, somebody's demanding your time, then please know that you can come back to this and do this at a later time, because this, within what's aware, this future wisdom is always available to you. So I'm going to provide some space and time here for you to be writing, and then I'm going to kind of check in with whoever's able to stick around and talk for a little bit more about what it's like to do this. But for right now, and if you're someone who's got to go, warmest wishes. May you have everything that your heart desires, and may you offer this to the world as a psychotherapist. But otherwise, just keep. If you're not leaving, just let this writing happen all by itself from the wisdom of 2024 to this moment in 2014. So keep going with that as long as you like. I'm going to start to unmute microphones. But please keep writing if you are so inclined. Usually when I've done this, we usually leave about 5 minutes for this, actually. Depends on, if you do this with a client, you can tell when they stop writing. So I'm going to provide another minute of silence. You can hear the ambient sound starting to kind of happen. If you're writing, please please allow yourself to keep writing, even as kind of ask anybody who wants to and is ready to share what this was like. All right. So, anybody want to say anything about what it was like for them to write a letter from your future self?
Well, this is Chris. So when I first started, I was thinking, oh, I can't, I don't like doing this kind of thing. I can't really feel what it's like in 2024, blah blah blah. But then when I started writing the letter, I just kind of made the assumption, okay, this is coming from there. I don't have to worry about if I'm there or not, and then just let it come, and it was really great, because it basically I just told myself that this is a really great time in my life, and it's a very juicy, exciting time, and to revel in it, because it's a it's not going to happen again. This is like a very kind of special transitional movement time. That's a really exciting time, and the rest is going to be great too. But this is going to be something specifically special in its way.
Lovely, 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 lovely. Anybody else want to share what you experienced doing this, or maybe if somebody's really terribly courageous, would you share what your future self said?
This is Marlise. I'll share if you want. I mean, obviously, we only had like 2 minutes to do this. And so I was surprised that I was able to start writing quickly without thinking much about it. And I'll read you what I wrote.
Wonderful.
It's kind of strange, maybe, but I don't know. Dear Marlise, in 2014, please don't be afraid to take risks with your truth. Have the courage to stay open to your truth and share it generously with those who want to know it. Onions make the stew richer, though they often cause pain when you peel them. They have many layers.
Oh,
so
beautiful.
Oh, that's wonderful. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. And you can see how, with your clients, you'll if you try this, your future self, because this is a self as perspective taking thing. I mean, we really can kind of move our point of view around, and there's a level at which we're kind of making it up, but you can see that something happens, and that advice that your future self certainly meaningful to me. I'll bet it's meaningful to you too, Marlise. And not at all strange. Anybody else? We got time for another one more if somebody wants to share their experience. And if not, last chance. If not, I have really, really enjoyed interacting with you all in this way. And I'm going to look forward to getting the rest of your exams, and some of you owe me more stuff, in terms of participation in the forums and so on. So I'll be, I'll be in touch if there's something that needs to get done in order to get course credit.
Michael, can I ask a quick logistical question?
Yeah.
I'm one of those people who still has to get the exam to you, and I'm assuming that we're just emailing them to you because I never figured out how to post stuff on the coursework part of the website.
No, me neither. And I if you saw that an early version of that, or I'm sorry, I modified that. Just email it to me. Download the exam, fill it out, cut and paste some parts of it, because you've done parts of it before, and just email it back.
Okay, I'll do that.
One other logistical note. Somebody just asked, how's the course evaluation thing going to work? CIS is going to mail you a course evaluation, and I'd really appreciate if you could fill that out. The feedback is really useful. On the basis of the summer, they decided that the technology system was so inadequate that they were going to have me come and do it in person in the spring. So I'm really looking forward to that. I'd love to have your feedback as well. So that's how that part's going to work. So well, I've actually got to get off. I've got to catch a plane. I'm going to the Science and Non-Duality Conference in San Jose. Anybody else going to that this weekend? Might run into you if you're there. Guess not. But I will look forward to any of you who can make it to 12 o'clock on Tuesday, or 3:30 in the room to be emailed to you next Tuesday. I'd love to get a chance to meet somebody in person, and we can just chat. So have a wonderful day, and I'll look forward to whatever happens next here for all of us in the universe. Okay?
Thanks, Michael. Thanks so much.
Thank you. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.